Ladies and gentlemen, greeting from Benin Republic. I'm Flavien Lamation, the Professional Development Coordinator of Africa TESOL. Welcome to this Africa TESOL monthly webinar. Julius Nyerere, a Tanzanian president, said, "Teachers, more than any other group, determine attitude and shape ideas and aspirations of a nation." Africa TESOL has understood this and every month organizes a webinar for its members. Today's webinar, whose title is Project-Based Instruction, Integrated Language Learning for the 21st Century, will be presented by 5 important people. And the main presenter is Tabitha Kidwell, a faculty member. Tabitha is a frequent presenter at regional and international TESOL conferences. She has conducted professional development for language teachers around the world. And dear participant, let's welcome Tabitha. Tabitha, you're welcome. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Flavien. So I'd like to actually start by inviting each of my co-presenters to also introduce themselves. So we'll just go in the order listed on this slide. Awatif.
Hello, everyone. This is Awatif Ghalib from Tanzania, based in Zanzibar, as an access teacher. Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. This is Obed Tawi from N'Djamena, Chad, and I'm with Access Chad. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon from Khartoum, Sudan. This is Ala Ad-Din Sid Ahmed. I am the founder and director of the STEPS Schools and Training Center here in Khartoum, Sudan. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I can't see my face. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We hear you, Jean-Claude. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude Chentu from Cameroon, and I'm an access teacher and coordinator at the Gaoundé Linguistic Center in the northern part of the Cameroon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll hear from each of them later. I'm Tabitha Kidwell. I am very pleased to be presenting today. I actually began my career as a Peace Corps volunteer in Madagascar. So Africa and Africa TESOL are very close to my heart. The work we'll be presenting on today began with work that we did together in Rwanda following the Africa TESOL presentation or the Africa TESOL conference that was held there in 2017 and has continued as I've been working with these co-presenters over the last few years. So we're excited to share it with all of you today. First, we'd like to hear a little bit about the presenters, at least those presenters who are here in our Zoom webinar. I'm going to launch a poll for you to tell us about how familiar you are with project-based instruction. Those of us who are participating on Facebook, you'll have the chance, you can just answer in the comments. So how familiar are you? Ranging from 5, I'm an expert, I'm super comfortable, maybe I've trained others about it, all the way down to 1. PBI is brand new to me, and I'm interested to learn more. So if you're here with us in the Zoom room, you should have seen a little window pop up, and I see some of you are starting to enter your responses now. So we'll take just another moment. And if you don't see the poll, you're welcome to answer in the chat. And as I'm looking at the chat now, I see we have people joining us from Rwanda, from Niger, from Nepal, from South Africa, from Algeria. So this is really wonderful. All right, so about half of the people have answered. We'll take just about 20 more seconds and then I'll share the results with you.
Yes, I said I'm an expert. I've been clicking, but it's not clicking. But I said I'm an expert. So I've
Okay.
used people in class and trained other teachers about it. So
okay. All right, let's go ahead and share with everybody. So those of you in the Zoom room should see the results. Many of you, the most common result was number 1, PBI is brand new to me. I'm interested to learn more. And this is great because that will be definitely the focus of what we're going to be sharing today. So then we have a real nice range of people all the way up to number 5, feeling like an expert. So I think those of you who have a little bit more experience with PBI will be able to build on that experience. And for those of you who this is brand new for, you'll definitely have some fresh ideas. So great to hear about everybody's perspectives and everybody's previous knowledge. All right, so first I'm going to just introduce a little bit of information about just what is PBI. Excuse me. What is PBI and how can you use it in your classrooms? So first, the characteristics of PBI. PBI involves learning by doing. So students learn through doing a project, through using the language, and through engaging in complex tasks. It involves process and product, meaning that it results in a final product or performance, but the learning happens throughout the process of creating that product or preparing that performance. In PBI, student voice and choice is essential. So students have the chance to take ownership of the direction of the project, and they take responsibility for their own learning through the gathering, processing, and reporting of information from English language resources. PBI involves extended time, meaning it extends longer than just a single lesson. This builds students' stamina and students' attention so they can focus and continue working on prolonged learning events, which of course is how learning happens in the real world outside of school. PBI involves authentic language use. So all 4 skills are used naturally and for a clear purpose. It involves collaborative work, ideally in groups of 3 to 5, so that students each are actively involved, but are not too overwhelmed. So students work together and support each other. And lastly, project-based instruction involves new roles for teachers and students. So it requires teachers and students to assume new roles and responsibilities, which will lead me to our next slide. So in PBI, the teacher acts more like a coach or a guide on the side rather than an expert or a sage on the stage. So this means that teachers work very closely with students. It's not to say that the teacher is not still acting as the leader. There are definitely still times when the teacher is the focus. For example, when giving a lecture, providing a structured lesson, or directing students to resources. And this will especially happen at the beginning of the project and for early uses of PBI when the students are not accustomed to the method and the teacher is still planning and facilitating much of the work. But throughout project-based instruction, the teacher is the manager of the inquiry process, the assessor of students' learning, and the master of logistics. But this is also student-centered learning. Students are the one directing their work as they complete projects. And to talk about why, let's look at the next slide. So I'd like you guys to share in the chat. What words do you see in this word cloud? What pops out to you first? This word cloud is taken from articles about project-based instruction. So what pops out to you? I see Pauline says students. And Magdalena says students. Joseph says work. Lorianne says real world. Addie says students, learning, and work. Alal says, all right, now we're coming in very quickly. We see learning, work, thank you, students, development. Project. All right, so definitely you guys pointed out some of the most important words here, which are learning, students, and work. In a lot of classrooms, students or teachers are the ones who are doing all the work. But stepping away from the teacher-centered classroom helps the teacher put more responsibility on the students. Learning is hard work, and the more work that students are doing, the more learning that is happening. So, project-based instruction requires a commitment to active learning. And this Chinese proverb shows why active learning is so important. It says, tell me and I may forget, tell me and I'll forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I'll understand. So PBI is powerful because it directly involves students in the learning process. Another way to think about how PBI actively involves students is shown on this slide. PBI is valuable because people tend to remember very little of what they hear, a little bit more of what they read, but a significant portion of what they see and do. So in PBI, students are still listening, they're still reading, but they're putting what they read and listen to in action by using it to complete a task and be actively involved in that task. So in language classrooms, active learning means actively using the language in all four modalities to do things that people use language for every day. So our sloth friend in this picture is using language to make coffee, maybe to read the directions on the package, to exercise, maybe to follow the instructions in an exercise videos, to write a note to yourself, to watch a movie, read the paper, get directions, watch videos online. All of these everyday tasks involve language use. And in our language classrooms, we want to design projects that encourage and support students as they use the language for authentic and meaningful tasks. And projects are an excellent way to do this. So now I'm going to transition to talk a little bit about the steps you can take to enact project-based instruction, the planning process. And after this, we'll shift over to hearing from my co-presenters about the enactment process and some of the projects they've actually done. But the first step in the planning process would be to select a theme. So theme sources can come from a variety of places. A natural place for a theme to arise from are students' language learning needs. So is there a language area that students struggle with that you'd like to give them a chance to practice? Is there a section of the textbook or a unit within the curriculum that you'd like to teach using PBI? You should be careful not to get stuck focusing on grammatical tasks only, but rather give students the opportunity to use rich language and use the skill that they're lacking in an authentic manner. So if students are hesitant to speak in public, for example, you could design a project where they have opportunities to practice speaking in a controlled way. For instance, by putting on a play, recording a podcast, or narrating a video. Think about how you can build on students' linguistic strengths while giving them the opportunity to address their weaknesses. Another source of themes could be the community. So is there a problem in the community that students could work together to address? For instance, if a local lake is polluted, students could do a project where they collect garbage or evidence of the pollution at that lake. They could make a YouTube video to raise awareness about the problems, or they could make recommendations to local community organizations about how to improve the situation. A third source of themes is student interest. So maybe students love taking and editing videos on their phones. Maybe they're always taking selfies. If that's the case, students could create a photography exhibition about their lives or important items and places in their communities. The project could involve writing captions, writing an exhibition guide, publicizing the event, and that would bring rich language use into that. And then the last useful sources of themes is the world outside of school, sometimes described as real world skills, meaning the skills that students will use outside of school in their future careers. So for example, a business owner has to market products and services. To develop and use these skills, students could take on the role of entrepreneurs and could decide how to develop and promote sustainable tourism in their area, or they could research ways to help local businesses. The next step is to identify a driving question. The driving question is the question that students are trying to answer by doing the project. So it drives the project. A good driving question will result in a smooth, easy road for students to travel. But if the driving question is unclear, your students might end up stuck, like the minibus shown here. I can't even imagine how that minibus got in that situation. But we don't want our students in similar metaphorical situations. So the driving question clearly states the purpose of the project and gives focus to all the tasks students do. Because this focus is in the form of a question, it leads students to an inquiry process. And the answer is at the heart of the project's culminating product and performances. So the driving question could be thought-provoking or challenging. It should be. So it should be relevant, important, urgent, or otherwise difficult to answer. It can be either open-ended or complex, meaning there's no simple right answer. There's no simple yes or no, but the question requires in-depth inquiry and higher level thinking. It should be linked to the core of what you want students to learn. So to answer the question, students need to gain the knowledge and skills that you've targeted as goals for the project. The question could be either abstract or concrete. So an abstract question could be, what is a good life? A concrete question could be, is our food safe to eat? Are our cell phones beneficial or harmful? The question could be problem solving, or it could require design skills. So an example of a problem solving question would be, how can girls in our community have the same opportunities as boys? An example of a design challenge question could be, how can we produce a documentary in English about our hometown? Either way, these rich driving questions offer direction to the project. So once you have a driving question, the next step is to determine the final product or performance. This final product should allow students to showcase their learning and convey their answer to the driving question. So on this slide, you see some example final products. Some of these are written products like a report, letter, poster, or newspaper. Some are planning products like a proposal or a blueprint. Some are media products like a website, video, or slideshow. Some are not even really tangible products, but rather are presentations like speeches, debates, drama, or songs. You could even ask students to create more than one of these options. For example, they could write a report and take part in a debate. But the key is to align your products with your outcome, which means making sure that you'll be able to find evidence in students' work of what you want them to learn. And really, whatever product you choose, it should be the result of in-depth inquiry, critical thinking, and attention to quality. So the last step in the planning process is perhaps the most important to the success of the project. It's to plan the daily teaching and learning tasks. A common misconception about PBI is that it involves just assigning the project and turning students loose. That's not the case at all. Teachers are involved at every step of the way. So at the beginning of the project, teachers might be involved by introducing relevant vocabulary, by planning reading and listening activities to build student background knowledge, by sharing models or samples of the final products so students understand their goal. For written outcomes, teachers will support students throughout by offering support with paraphrasing and citation, supporting the editing and revision process. For oral outcomes, the teacher will do things like review pronunciation, intonation, and stress, review key grammatical structures, provide feedback on rehearsals. No matter the outcome, teachers are involved throughout. They plan what students do each day, and they plan ways that they can support them so that they're more successful. So I've offered everybody something of an overview, but I think the best way to really understand PBI is to hear from teachers who have implemented it. PBI can look very different in different contexts with different levels of students. So we'd like to share some examples. And as you see these examples, I'd invite you to think about how you could adapt the projects you hear about for your own contexts. So with that, I will turn it to Obed to share about his job search project.
I thank you so much, Tabitha, for that introduction, and you're welcome. Yes, so this is project-based learning, and I have personally trained my colleague teachers on the use of PBI in the classroom after I went through the trainers training program in Kigali, and we've tried it in the Access program here in Chad. And the first and also the biggest project I have used so far was about job searching, CV writing, and then preparing for interviews. In this project, we actually worked with final year students of the Access program, where we took them through how to be able to qualify for a job. So students got opportunity to write their own CVs and application letters, attach them to email, and send them to a given email address. And also students went through a number of steps, as Tabitha had explained, it step by step, but the teacher guides them. And then the teacher designed everything, so they implemented the project, and in the end, they were really happy with what they did. So next slide. All right, so here in Chad, like I said, we had a project where students had to prepare for a job. So it all started with a fictitious letter. We actually had to present them with a letter, which was advertising 3 jobs at the Embassy of the United States of America here in Chad. And believe you me, the students fell for it. And it was a sight to see them trying to do everything. So after that, now we put them into groups where they have to work on what you need to be able to apply for this job, because there was a deadline also attached to that letter. So what are the things you need? They worked it out themselves, and then they came up to us and then presented the things you need. So it came up that we needed a CV. You also need to write an application letter. And since there was an email provided, that means they also need to have email addresses and learn how to attach them. So this was the feedback we got from them. And then we use this feedback to also use it to teach them, take them through how to write a CV, the components of a CV, how to write an application letter. And we also have to help them create email addresses and then be able to attach them. And then the next slide. Then once they were able to create all that, now they have to now type their own CV. Most of them have not used the computer before, but this was the first time for them to get to use it. And they really did well. They typed their CVs and letters, and then they have to attach the CVs and letters and every other to their email and then send it to the given address. Then after that, they have to now work on the next part, which is now preparing for an interview, because once you send your CVs and then you are shortlisted, you need to prepare for an interview. So they have to go through what do you need to be ready for an interview in terms of the questions, what kind of questions can come up, and then what do you need to know about the job and everything. So they work in groups, as you can see from the slide on your screen. And then from there, we have to also get videos of interview sessions so that they can be able to hear and then see for themselves questions being asked, and then what to do and what not to do. And it was really, really a wonderful sight to see the students working together, because each and every one of them wanted to really get the job. Next slide. Right. So from there, now we also have to let them now do practice. Okay, they need to practice whatever they've learned. So you can see in the picture there, students working in pairs. So for each session, you have one side of the group being the interviewer, well, the other is the candidate, and then they switch over. So they went through that, and it was very, very successful. And then later on, they also have to work on posters to show to everyone, to look at what are some of the questions that can be asked in an interview, and then what are the possible answers? How can you answer them? So they were preparing themselves for that. Now, after this, we have to select about, we selected 10 students from 110, yes, because it was 110, so we selected 10 out of them. And we had a mock interview. Yeah, a mock interview, because for them, it was a real interview for a job. And we had members of staff from the U.S. Embassy in N'Djamena who came over to organize the interview. And you can see we have other students who were also watching on to also learn as much as they could. And it was really, really a wonderful thing. The staff from the embassy were really impressed with what the students were able to come up with. And they were also very proud of themselves because they could understand native speakers and also communicate with them, which is one of our objectives. Then after that, during their graduation, like I said, they are final year students. During their graduation, they were able to present a skit on the importance of 21st century skills. And everyone present was really happy. And even the guests who attended the ceremony also learned a lot. So basically, this was what we did. And I'm sure we're going to have some time later on to answer any questions if you have. So thank you very much. Over to you, Tabitha.
And actually, I'll turn it right over to Jean-Claude for him to share about another example project. Jean-Claude, are you able to unmute?
Are you getting me? Hello?
Great, we can hear you. The
All
floor
right.
is yours.
Yes, I was saying that I conducted a project, a PBI project entitled From Farm to Table. So I would like to share my own experience with all the webinars. So good afternoon, everyone. So in fact, everything started with a class discussion. One day a child came in the classroom and said he was late because he had nothing to eat. So the teacher seized that opportunity to put some questions to the participant for them to list out the major problems they have in the environment. They said they had issue of commuting to school, violence, and mostly the one of food. And so we took that opportunity to ask them what to do to solve the problem. So and that's how the project started. Yes. And what we did first was that we decided we agree on what to do, and then we decided to go to MyScam. Yes, MyScam is a company where the visit to MyScam was meant to select the seeds, to meet the expert, for them to help us to select the seeds, preparation of the land, follow up the crops, harvest, and then the various transformations. So on the picture, you can see the children listening to the expert. Next. Yes, then the children, we decided, as we had a backyard behind the center, we went on the field, and you can see children exploring the land to share and then to know what they are going to do in the various groups. So you can see them going around, boys and girls. Yes, so that's what you can see. They're exploring, trying to know what they can do, how they are going to organize their work, and the selection of their own plot. Next. Yes, here you can see group work. They are working, boys and girls are working because they are on the field. And believe me, it was not easy because the boys are, in this region, boys assume that they are superior to girls. Having outdoors activity together is not always easy. But you can see them enjoying as they are working together on the plot. Next, please. Yes, here 3 months later, as they harvested. You can see them brandishing the maize they harvested, and they were very happy. You can see smiles on their faces. Yes, next. Yes, here they cooked and ate and enjoyed. They cooked and ate and enjoyed. And here, when girls were cooking, they didn't want boys to come because here men are meant for the parlor and women are meant for the kitchen. That's what they thought in the past. But things have changed. Yes, next. So what can I say? For the language learned, they've learned a lot because you can see, first of all, vocabulary related to farm work and activities. For grammar, they went for conditionals. For example, if you want to have a better production, you should take care of your farm. The sequencing markers, first, cut the grass. Secondly, make seedbed. Third, plant your crops. So, and then they also had another pattern, the one of giving instructions with the imperative. Till the soil, dig the ground, and so on and so forth. Then the next one was like about giving advice with should and shouldn't. For example, you should work hard, you shouldn't make bushfires. And then this issue of strong obligation with the use of have to and don't have to. Example, you have to study your lessons, otherwise you fail your exams, or you don't have to accept early and forced marriages. Native. Then they also learn about narrative tenses. I will just take the example of the present continuous in all the forms: interrogative, negative, and affirmative. The group, they were divided into two groups. Group one was asking questions. Group two was answering. Example: what are you doing? As they were working, while working, they were saying, "What are you doing?" To one group. The other one was saying, "We are plowing the farm. What are you doing? Are you sleeping?" Or no, we are not sleeping. Are we crying? No, we are working. So they were practicing the language while working. Next. Yes, so you can see all of them here. And this shows that they really enjoy this PBI because they learn by doing. And it shows that PBI is more than English, because these children who were hungry at the beginning, and now they are able to produce their own, to grow their own farm and produce their own food and become more independent in terms of financially. So they've learned a lot and they've solved the problem of the environment. I think through this PBI, they've done wonderful things. So we are very happy with them. And today, many people would like to do the same, because the way the teaching of English has changed through this PBI. The teaching and learning has changed both to learners and teachers. Now, it's very enjoyable to learn the language because they produce and then they use language to do far better things. I think PBI has come to stay. It has changed the way of thinking and doing things in our own environment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jean-Claude. We'll turn it to Awatif now.
Hello, everyone. This is Awati from Zanzibar in Tanzania as an access teacher. On my side, I will talk about the spirit of volunteerism in terms of giving back to your community. As already said that with the PBI, there are many things happening in terms of project themes. So in my case, I will just want to share the experience of one of the community engagement where the students have been able to do, and so that to grow in terms of to volunteer, because most of our people in our country, they don't have that attitude, I may say, or sense of volunteer. But through PBI and through intensive program, because PBI through access, we have session of after school hours, which is short time, but also we have intensive hour where student can do more in terms of giving back to community or do any things in terms of enhancement. So on my side, I will go to share with you this kind of giving back to your community. Next slide. So as you can see here in the pictures, they are boys, and actually ages of these boys around 13, 14 to 15. And we have a mixture of girls and boys, and they were doing kind of for cleanness. And actually this was a day we celebrated the World Environment Day, and it was the 5th of June in 2018. And our student was taken to one of the community activities, and it was an older people house where they went there to support the elder people and to see how important, or to learn how important to support those kind of people and other people. In fact, they have been doing more in terms of helping orphans, in terms of cleaning beaches. But for these activities, we based to help older people. Can you go to the next? Next, please. So again here, as you see, while they are working, they were slashing, they use more, and they were collecting trash and go and dispose somewhere. So through this, they were not only just working, actually they were communicating. And while they were communicating, they developed kind of different skills. As you can see, they were using language, and actually most of the languages they used that time was instruction kind of language, I mean command imperatives in terms of requesting, advising, as well as using polite requests while they are using things. But at the same time, they learn new vocabulary there because some of the equipment that they use, they didn't know what their names. For example, it was first time for like this boy using the Lomo. Actually, it was a new for him. So they didn't know that kind of vocabulary. So, and actually doing that, they were learning language in general in terms of imperatives, but at the same time, they were, you know, developing in terms of 21st century skill, in terms of solving problem, communicating, teamwork, and so on. And also through that, they were able to cooperate as there was no gender bias here. As you can see here, picture number, I mean the down picture here, a boy and a girl were helping, and they didn't see that this is a different things for them. They were seeing that everybody can do anything. So they were growing in terms of different kind of skill, language skill, as well as other kind of skills. Can you go to the next, please? Yes, again, it was kind of integrative learning and keeping or creating alliance. As you can see here, there are pictures of access student from Munguja, and they were listening to one of the boy. This boy is come from one of the another program called YES, is a youth exchange program. And actually we invited them because they are senior to these access students. While they were there, they presented in terms of the importance of environments. So the student, I mean, listened as well as inquiry different questions to learn more about the importance of environment. And the language used here was English. So through that, students were able to communicate and exchange idea with other teams. So they have able to create a kind of relationship with other program. So that was a great. Can you go to the next? Yes, at the end, as you can see in the picture, students were feeling very happy and motivated and enjoyed. So that's the one of the benefits of PBI, that we engage these students. At the same time, they help their community. While helping their community, they grew in terms of academically, communicatively. So this helped to build the kind of student who can benefit in their future potentiality. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Awatif. And I'll turn it over to our last co-presenter, last but not least, Aladdin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone from Khartoum, Sudan. Again, I am Alauddin Sid Ahmed. I am the founder and director of the STEPS Schools and Training Center in Khartoum. And I am also the coordinator of the Access program here in Sudan. The first slide, please, Tapita. So talking about project-based instruction, we see it as the future of education. However, I will not be talking about the importance of PBI here, which I believe that most of you is already aware of now, but rather why it's important to merge it with technology. And simply, technology is the future of the workforce. Online is a critical resource today, and the access to the internet is inevitable for today and for tomorrow's learning and learners. Combining project-based instruction and technology gives students the key skills they need in the future. For example, creativity, independence, analytical thinking, adaptability, and other skills. Using technology isn't about maintaining presence on social media. This is not what we're talking about here, but rather it's about being empowered, through searching and exploring the net, constructing knowledge via own analysis and findings, and being a good communicator in presenting your end products. What I will be sharing afterwards here is the experience at STEPS in trying to merge PBI and technology to also try and yield a stronger learning style. Next, please. Next, please. So simply, we adapted an alternative for textbooks via using tablets, and this allows easier access and interaction to information. So the students are using their tablets to try and receive all the information from the online, as well as their normal textbooks hosted in their tablets. Next. Using the learning management system, it's a very useful resource to have all your information hosted in one place. So I'm talking here about the academic information and resources, and it's all hosted on the Moodle LMS. And this has been a useful platform for students and teachers. Now for students, all resources are placed in the Moodle LMS in one place. And for teachers, this is an easier manner to communicate content, assignments, tasks, and allow academic administration as well to collect learners' data across different activities. Next. Now, trying to personalize the best project-based learning experience is when we merge the technology with the concept. So now when we define the project and we define the theme, the end product, students start working together, they start discussing in groups as we see. And the example of the physics experience we see on the right picture is a simple example is regarding an electricity circuit where students define their end product as a demonstration model together with an explanatory poster that you see in the back. They referred not only to their textbooks, but to different online resources. They discussed the what and the how part. Then they came up finally with their end product. Next, please. But yet, we are facing lots of challenges while trying to combine the two. So, in a third world country like Sudan, technology acquisition is still a challenge for many educators, as well as students and learners. Moreover, even the accessibility and reliability of the internet connection is a continual issue. As both project-based instruction and technology applications are continually evolving, teachers, especially elder ones, are struggling to cope and commit to its continual demand. So teachers might be one of the critical factors that we continually need to work on. While talking about group dynamics, it's frequently difficult to determine the group dynamics. For example, the engagement and contribution of each member during the different project phases. Thus, teachers need to plan for an assessment mechanism for testing understanding and contribution of members. And finally, there are still some difficulties, at least for us, trying to figure out how to use project-based instruction in certain subjects, like, for example, mathematics. It's quite useful with social studies, with sciences, and even language, but we're still trying to figure out, how to use it in certain formal education subjects. So this is our simple experience at STEPS. I hope to also hear some recommendations and advices for us, and hope that you can benefit a little bit from our simple experience. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Aladdin, and all of you who shared your experiences. So a couple of closing thoughts, and then we'll discuss some of the questions that have come in. We've seen some examples here that show successful PBI projects, but I think it's really important to remember that PBI takes practice. So if anyone in the audience is a musician, I suggest you think about the first time you picked up your instrument. I bet it did not sound very good. Same thing for those of you who are athletes. What happens if you don't play for a while? I bet you need some time to get back into the game. So project-based instruction works the same way. It takes practice. It may be, and it likely will be, a challenge at first for both teachers and students, but through hard work, it can result in really high quality learning opportunities, and it will get easier with time. So you all come from very different contexts, but I want to close by saying that there's no one right way to enact project-based instruction. There is, however, a possible way for every context, including yours. So I encourage you to adapt the idea you've heard here to meet the needs of your students and your communities, and then please share your successes with others. So with that, we are able to open the floor and discuss some of the questions that have been coming in through the Q&A. Thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to your questions. Flavian, I think I've seen a few questions come in already. Is there any question you'd recommend starting with, Flavian?
Seems like Flavian is having technical difficulty. So if you can go ahead, Tabitha, read the question and maybe provide an answer to it, that would be great.
Absolutely, sounds good. So an early question that came in was, where is students' voice in choosing the theme? If you recall back to our discussion about choosing themes, I suggested, here we go. Thinking of language learning needs, your community, student interests, the world outside of school. And I'm really glad that this attendee brought up this question because I think it's a really wise addition. Student voice could be a great place in choosing a great source of theme ideas. So that comes not only from student interest, but also students' needs. What do students perceive as their language learning needs? What do students perceive as the problems in their community? What do students see as the skills they need to know for the world outside of school? So student input in all of these is really important to help develop projects that will be meaningful and impactful for students. So I think that's a really good addition to the discussion of selecting a theme. The next question that I see that's really interesting is a question I'll turn over to the four panelists, which is, are there long-term impacts that PBI can have on students in their future life? I'm going to also share that in the chat so everybody can see it written. Are there long-term impacts? What have you guys seen in your work with students as some of the long-term impacts that PBI has had on students? Aladdin, it looks like you're speaking, but you're muted.
Yes, if I may just have a short comment here. I have mentioned in my first slide that we're trying to develop future citizens who are digital citizens, but I don't mean by digital here is that they're just technically knowledgeable in using the technology and the internet, but actually the technology is the future of the workforce. So trying to combine the project-based instruction techniques together with the use of technology will yield in a digital citizen. And I also explained what I mean here by the digital citizen. So it allows the student to be prepared for the future through being a good communicator in presenting their end product, It stimulates their knowledge via their own analysis and finding, as well as helping them empowered by self-search and explore to the information and resources. So this is a simple comment about the question. And I'll leave the floor for others if they want to add.
Yeah, I also want to add something. So I think that what we've noticed that, like I said, we use it for final year students. So we've had many students after this, they go on to apply for scholarship programs, and then they pass through interviews, and most of them are also studying outside of Chad because they are on scholarship, and that the interview process also helps them. So I think that these are all the long-term effects that we have seen, and so that's what I want to add.
All right. We still have many other questions, and one of these is related to PBI and time management. One of the attendees would like to know how to handle the issue of time and PBL learning. Tabitha, could you say something about it?
Yes, thank you, Flavian. So I know that people also, teachers often feel frustrated when they first experiment with PBI because they feel, oh, this takes so much time. And how can I teach all of the things I need to teach in my curriculum if I'm also doing PBI? But I think that's not really the way we need to look at it. We need to look at it as not as something we do in addition, but as the way that we teach the curriculum we're required to teach. So students learn verb tenses, they learn vocabulary, they learn strategies and 21st century skills through doing the projects. And so that means that the lessons that you would be teaching are construed, are presented as part of the project. So you might present a lesson about simple past tense as a preparation for a project on writing folk tales, because students would need to use that tense. So you're integrating your curriculum within PBI and sort of using it as the approach to teach your content. So that's one piece of considering time management. A second piece of time management is that PBI does take time. It takes time for students to do their work, and it will be an extended event, but learning takes time. So I think it's important to recognize that though it might feel like students are taking a long time to accomplish something, that's likely because they're accomplishing something complex and important. That being said, there are also ways that the teachers can help teach students stay on time, giving them clear guidelines, giving them small steps to complete towards a project, giving them support so that they're able to complete those small steps without losing time, feeling lost. So time management is a really important aspect to plan for. So I really appreciate this question for that reason. Do any of my co-presenters have any experience with time management with the projects you've done that you'd like to add?
Yes. Let me. So I think that with time management, for me, I found it helped me to manage time because with PBI, the learning doesn't stop in the classroom. The learning process continues outside of the classroom, in their home, on their playground, in the community, everything. So it's as if the classroom is also extended to all these places, and this is good. So the time shouldn't be, it's just a matter of planning it well. Once you plan it well, you'll be able to achieve whatever curriculum you have, and the students will get the best out of what they learn. That's what I would say.
Okay. Yes. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So the next question is about role change and PBL. And somewhere I read there are main aspects of PBL that teachers and learners might find challenging. Classroom management changes, and students and teachers need to understand different roles and they might feel uncomfortable with. So what do you think about Tabitha?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest challenges of beginning to enact PBI, project-based instruction, because it does take the teacher out of the traditional teacher role. So in some ways, the teacher might feel that he or she is losing some of their power over the class. But I think that's an important piece of moving towards student-centered learning, where students gain the power to direct their own learning in ways that's meaningful for them. So it definitely is a transition, and it requires teachers setting up classroom routines and classroom expectations so that students know that the teacher has high expectations for them, and so that they know what they're supposed to be doing at every time, at every moment. Because the teacher, though they're kind of stepping away from that sage on the stage situation, they're still acting as the guide on the side. They're still in charge, but they're sort of guiding students to be more involved in their own learning. So it definitely is a transition, and it will take time for both teachers and students to become accustomed to this transition, but it is a transition that will likely vastly improve student learning outcomes and student learning opportunities. Does anyone else have anything to add, having gone through this transition yourself?
If I may add, Tabitha, change is always difficult for everyone, for each one of us. And changing the teaching style, talking here about teachers, is also a challenge for many teachers who are used to teach in a certain way. So we need to be patient as educational managers, as coaches, and in steps. We feel this not only when trying to implement PBI, but when also trying to apply technology. So the same resistance we feel twice, trying to implement PBI and trying to, implement new technologies in the teaching and learning style. So let's be patient, let's invest in our knowledge management, and let's closely help and support those teachers to try and achieve their goals and targets and strategical direction. Thank you.
I also want to add on that. I think what has been said is right. And actually myself as an access teacher, I have observed that from the beginning it's very difficult, not only for teacher, but also for the students, because that's something new for them. As most of us in our context is they use traditional way of learning, and the teacher using traditional way of teaching. But later on, the further you practice the PBI, it gives a momentum that as a teacher is easy to do that, and students learn very quickly. They become more autonomous learners, and actually you feel released, and the understanding is taking very quick for the students. So it's very, very nice. However, at the beginning, it takes a bit time. Thank you.
Okay, we still have 1 minute left. Yes, PBL and grammar teaching. Does PBL relate to what is called format? Tabitha, could you say something about the two questions?
Could you repeat the second part of the question?
Yes, the impact of PBL and grammar teaching, and does PBL relate to what is called format?
Okay. So first, the impact of learning on grammar teaching, project-based learning on grammar teaching. So project-based learning fits quite well with grammar teaching. If you are teaching a curriculum that is heavily grammar focused, I think it can be useful to think about what are situations when people need to use a certain grammar point in their daily life to accomplish those different tasks that we talked about earlier. Exercising, making coffee, watching videos, writing yourself a note. So think about ways that grammar is used and then develop projects that allow students to use that grammar point in their project. So that means that a portion of what will be considered project-based instruction will look quite similar to traditional instruction. Still, the teacher will be giving instruction about how do you use this grammar point, what are some examples of it, and they'll be guiding students through guided practice towards independent practice. But then the project-based instruction portion of a grammar-focused unit would be giving students opportunities to more independently practice. So Aisha's question about does PBI relate to what is called format, it kind of goes along with this. So thank you, Aisha. So format is a system for planning a lesson that begins with motivation, then offers information, practice, and application. It's 4 things that together make for a strong quality lesson. So PBI connects quite well to the format system because PBI would be sort of the application portion of that lesson planning system. So that's definitely another way to think about integrating projects into your teaching, beginning with motivating students, possibly through the use of a driving question or through helping them contribute to the selection of a theme, and then offering them information, the skills and knowledge they need to be able to complete the project. The teacher will plan lessons that help students develop those skills and knowledge. The practice portion, the teacher would plan activities to help students practice the activity, practice the skills and knowledge they need for the project. And then when you come to the application portion, you're ready for students to apply their knowledge by doing a project. So it definitely has parallels there. So that's a great question.
Okay, this is Africa TESOL monthly webinar. And today, as you can all see, we feature the team of Tabitha Kidwell. And we have learned many things from PBL. Dewey John said, if we teach today's student like yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. So based on this, it is important to start implementing this approach in our different classrooms. Thank you for attending this webinar, and I wish you all the best, and let's meet next week for our leadership discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure.